of the impressive third quarter results last week paved the way for a 1.2% rise in the GSE Composite Index. However, total turnover dropped 51%. Now, Collins Appiah, Executive Director at NDK Asset Management, joins me from Accra for more on the Ghanaian equities market. Collins, thank you so much for making the time to join us today. Before we get into the nitty-gritties about those Q3 earnings, let's talk about what were some of the driving factors behind today's market performance.
Yeah, because I'm here, so I can also hear when he speaks to you. So
Collins, I'm going to try that question again and just ask you, can you give us an update or rather a roundup of what was behind the drivers of today's market performance?
Okay, I think today's market was very impressive, despite the fact that some of the companies' results that we had was good, though some of them in terms of their pricing will term as an overpriced stocks. But we realized that the performance that they posted in their financial report during the third quarter was very good, and therefore we still expect those stocks to continue to move up. Overall, we had some of the financial stocks going up as against the consumer goods stocks that were also, moving up. So I might say that the Ghana stock market was very good, probably from last year compared to this year.
As you mentioned, that the financial stocks or even the banking stocks did quite well. Are you able to just let us know if you've seen this positive sentiment being carried through to the rest of the banking stocks?
I think for the financial stock, we have been seeing sort of a mixed performance because last week, for instance, Car Bank and some of the stock that we expect probably to have good price appreciation were having some challenges, and I believe were just due to profit taking, because you realize some of the profit that they've made for investors, it makes sense just to cash some of this profit out and therefore maintain your position as to whether the stock will drop and later come in again. But having said that, I think if you, as I said, if you look at their third quarter, Car Bank, for instance, recorded almost about 113 profit after tax, which for me gives investors a good signal as to how the company is doing. If you take like EcoBank Ghana, for instance, it also did about 41% profit after tax. SIC, which is an insurance company, also released a good financial report. And putting all this together, you then ask yourself, why should those stocks probably be dropping? But as I said, probably from the beginning of this year, you realize that the pension fund came to boost these prices, and therefore most of this stock did a very good return from the beginning, and therefore you realize that people might be cashing out and taking money from the market as and when equities or returns are being released on the market.
Collins, tell us, what has the sentiment been like for the non-financial or the non-banking stocks?
For non-financial, one thing that we've actually seen a momentum in is the Farm Milk Company Limited. Almost on daily basis, you get this stock moving up. You have seen Guinness Ghana Brewery Limited also getting some momentum, though last week there was some mixed performance. It dropped and also rise again. We probably expect investors to continue watching these stocks, and going forward, we believe that they will probably be taking a decision that will continue to move their prices up, because the fundamentals, as I said, the earnings that they've released is still very strong.
Let's move our attention to the currency front, because we have seen some weakness when it comes to the cedi. It has been somewhat of a concern for investors. Are you seeing this impacting on demand for stocks at all?
On our currency market, we have seen the cedi constantly depreciating against the dollar in particular. Last week, for instance, there was another depreciation to the local currency. This year, the cedi has been depreciating, I think, from the second quarter to the third quarter, and it keeps on depreciating. One reason is as a result of the fact that now most of the importers' demands for foreign goods more or less are very high on our market, and we've seen corporate demand too also on our foreign exchange market, and therefore we realize that looking at the debt position of the government, this trend is likely to continue. Having said that, we also saw, I think, a slight appreciation of the cedi against the euro and the pound. But overall, because most trades on the currency market are being done in dollars, the cedi index that we have was on the low side compared to even the previous week. And this trend is really a trend that have started almost about 3 months ago and is still ongoing.
Collins, let's talk about some of the measures that the Central Bank of Ghana has put in place in order to bring down interest rates. How's that working?
I think looking at the interest rate trend, what actually we've seen is that for some weeks now, the rates are coming down. And the question that we pose to ourselves, is this something that is really sustainable? And why are these rates coming down? Now, last week, for instance, the central bank just bought just 92% out of the total target of what they wanted to buy from the market. You know, traders or auctioneers will go to the market and post their bid. But it depends on the central bank to decide how much you want to really borrow. At the time you decide not to borrow so much, I mean, you get the rate coming down because at that time he will determine what rate you want to give to investors. So we have seen that that's the strategy that the central bank is probably taking in order not to take so much from the investors. He tried to borrow a little bit and reduce the rate. And that's what we've seen, that the rates are coming down in that direction. But having said that, we ask ourselves whether there is something that is very sustainable. And I think the answer for me is obviously no, because if you look at the debt position, as I said, to the nation, it's obvious that the government will continue to borrow. And if the government will continue to borrow, depending on how demand that investor will be posting in terms of buying of these treasury bills, you still will want to see that in future interest rates are likely to still be high.